Woohoo! Here we are, first garden tour 2022, mid-March, and it feels like spring. It is 60s. I've been out cleaning up. This is kind of the not so pretty garden that I've been working on really hard to have color throughout the year, because usually there's going to be a bleeding heart. We got the beautiful hellebore, which is budded up wonderfully, so that'll be nice. For the winter, I store a lot of things on this side just because it stays warm. We've got hibiscus, that was a transplant last year. The geranium came back nicely, and I got to work on my saw blade border some more. But yeah, I store things here. I've been working on touch-up painting some things, and this is my holding nursery, so to speak. We've got some sedum that are going back to my parents' house. We're reworking one of their beds. Some perennials. We got more hibiscus that I was going to plant in the front of the house, but realized it's really probably too dry. So I think I'm going to keep them at the north side of the house where it is wet. And it'll be a nice color to see from the house. We got some hostas, strawberries, and we have, what can I think of the name of it? Not hyacinths, honeysuckle. There we go. I don't know that I will keep it there forever, but I do like something covering up all of this white siding. And a little bit of ice. It is going to be in the 20s next week, so I haven't completely cleaned things up, but this is the most I've cleaned up this early for a couple of reasons. The first reason being, this is the bed that's always destroyed by voles. So I'm going to work really diligently on keeping repellent down, because last year they ate some of my favorite hostas, and last year was the best hosta year I've ever had. Things were really beautiful in maturity, but I traveled so much, I wasn't keeping an eye at the end of the year. They ate my blue ivory, Hans, one of my mouse ears, and probably there's more than that. But this isn't beautiful to look at right now. Really basic. We got the Virginia that will hopefully look beautiful this spring. And because this garden is so wet, we always get some massive frost heaving. Like you can tell with this heuchera, it's pretty much just sticking up in the air. That's kind of a constant issue. I wish I had an endless budget that I could put great draining base in here, and that's just not how I work. I kind of make do with what I have and what I can afford each season, and it's just always going to be really wet. Like these daisies lumped right out of the ground. Looks really silly. But I try to fill that in once things settle and thaw out for real. It won't be quite so bad, but you can tell like my boards fall down. I wish I could afford professional hardscaping, but not there yet. Hellebores look pretty good. The foliage definitely needs to be cut back. This one right here, the mahogany, no, looks the best, I think. And that one is okay for a heuchera. Gosh, they don't look great when they come back like that. My black hellebore always has the least amount of foliage, but their blooms are so nice and dark. I think I'm going to take some of my ajuga and spread that out down there, because I really like how it looks covering the ground. I just question if it's more cover for the voles, because they are my #1 nemesis. I don't know how people store their pots outside and don't ever have them crack. This is, well, the second year. I was really lucky last year and it did great. But as long as it holds together and I don't move it around, I'm just going to keep planting it. These were pretty much maintenance free for me last year because I used some perennials. Not a lot to see in the swamp garden. There's not a lot happening. I do have plans to move the little Yuki cherry blossoms closer to the border so they can get some more sun, because they looked really nice last year. this willow, it's a dappled willow. Obviously it's dead on one side. I did have it planted next to the house the first year I had it, which was I think 3 seasons ago. And since only 3/4 of it really looks pretty, I'm going to transplant that kind of behind the Veggie Garden fence where it is always wet and see if this sucks up some of that water. We'll see. I threw in this anemone last fall. We'll see if she comes back. Butterbur. I love seeing how much this goes every year. Hasn't spread as much as I thought it would. I was told it was pretty aggressive, but not so far. Boy, leaf blowing makes such a difference in cleanup. Pruned my hydrangea this week. Need to feed that today. This garden was mostly coleus, a couple of hosta, which I actually now am remembering, I think the voles ate one or both of these hostas too. Because my clematis is like a fuchsia pink, I'm going to stick with a simpler color palette. Purple, white, silver foliage, I think would look very nice. Veggie Garden looks good as usual. It's the only dry part, top of the hill. However, veggies take a lot of maintenance with watering, and I did some traveling last summer. I'm going to travel again this summer, do some camping. I don't want my house sitter to have to worry about guessing how much the plants need. So I'm going to do cut flowers in here, which I was going to do last year, then chickened out. So I'm going to try some rose. I do have netting, because last year that was the cut flower garden on the hill. They looked beautiful, but they did not have straight stems, and cut flowers get really tall. We have winter sowing over here. First year I've ever done this. I do have indoor grow lights, a whole rack of them, but because I do so many zinnias and snapdragons and things like that, and some other warm season crops, I really need the room in there. So I'm just trying the jugs, and whatever works, works. If it doesn't, I'll be disappointed, but it won't be devastated. So this little bed has been here the longest at my house. This was my first garden bed, and it is now transplants from my parents' house. And I love it because it's mostly bee balm, and comfrey comes up in this corner. It's also a favorite hiding hole for the chipmunks and red squirrels. So my dog has dug all under there, there, as well as the rodents have made their holes. So I threw in some straw from the duck pen. I gotta add more compost on top of that just to bring the levels back up. And I will be putting repellent all around there, just try to deter the rodents. And this running water, which is my life here on this property. It's awful, but again, I don't have an endless budget to keep hiring people to excavate my land. It was not done properly in the beginning, and just over time, obviously erosion's gonna happen, and you can tell that's uphill. Bird feeders all got a touch up of paint in the baffles. That looks nice. So over here we have the sweet autumn clematis. I cut it back, but not all the way. We also have some hibiscus, that right there. And on the other side, there's a silver marker that were transplants. So that'll be their first year here. Again, because my yard is so wet, everything frost heaves out of the ground, including plants that are put over here. So fingers crossed, when everything thaws out, they are happy. And then this cut flower garden, we'll still have some cut flowers. I am working on putting more perennials here, and I think I'll do one tomato and my cucumber over here as well. And I'm working on some more fencing, because what I used to use for fencing last year is now housing my duck. Oh look, there's little ducky footprints. So the couple of perennials we've added, I've got, again, frost heaves. Orangium that was planted. That's just so I know where it is and the dog doesn't run it over. We've got some phlox, hydrangea that I pruned, Got some peonies that are coming back. I've got some there. And I dug up a few from my parents. So I'm really excited to have those just for, you know, nostalgia's sake. And then this, maybe that's another peony, or is that a clump of phlox? I don't remember. I tore out an entire garden bed at my parents' and took some of their perennials that are 20 years old. This yucca is, oh my goodness, my favoriteest thing ever. I'm so happy I planted it here last summer. It was going to be a gift for someone and I kept it, and it's the perfect plant for this pot. It stayed green all winter. I am thrilled to see it come back this year. Love it. And that's just hiding the ugly well. And not much else to see out front. I don't know, might do potatoes again in those buckets, or maybe some other perennial. And then over here, so last year I had some house plants kind of set up along these posts in the shade, like my monstera, the bigger ones. I think I'm gonna add a hanging basket from under the side on the middle beam. I cleaned up the espalier a little bit. This was pretty much cleaned up from last fall. Gonna work with simple colors here. My garden journal, my notes reminded me to keep lower growing plants because the espalier is not very tall. So if I'm putting larger plants there, it just hides it. I did canna lilies right here in the middle and really liked that. So I might do the canna focal and then some lower ground covering plants. And then we have the catmint, barberry, and there are still some little alliums. Those were new additions last year. The duck poop on them. And I cleaned up this hydrangea as well. Last year I think I pruned it too heavily and it got very floppy, so I hope this won't be as floppy this year. So, oh, the cages are just preventing the ducks from scratching up those plants because they kind of hang out here where it's warm and sunny, and they also like the runoff from the gutter. So that's it for now. March in Maine.